George Wood has just returned from the capital of Vila. George, welcome. You're in one piece.
Yes, got a cold, but other than that, I'm certainly a lot better than most of the people at Vila. The situation there, it's really hard to understand the kind of hardship that the people of Vanuatu are going through at the moment. Quite apart from almost losing their own lives, they've lost their homes, all their personal possessions, the kind of things that give you the identity that you have. The island nation itself is critically short of foodstuffs. There's only 10 days' supply of food left on the island. But everyone there seems to be taking things in their stride. They've got on with the job of cleaning up. The disaster relief plan itself is working very well, particularly in view of the fact the communications are bad. But things just seem to be happening there. People are building. Incidentally, the disaster relief plan itself was designed by an Australian fellow. And when I interviewed the chairman of the committee, he repeated at least 6 times during the interview, he said, "I'd like to thank Nick Carter of Australia for drawing up the plan." So that's a great pat on the back there. But there's a great spirit of reconstruction on Vanuatu at the moment, particularly when you think that it's the worst cyclone in the South Pacific this season, and certainly the worst at Vanuatu for 30 odd years. Anyway, we've put this piece together this morning just for 11 AM on the cyclone. When the wind started to blow on Saturday afternoon, little did the people of Vila know what was in store.
It's pretty wild here now. I think we're for a really rough night.
By next morning, the city had been flattened. The 180 km/h winds had torn buildings apart, ripped trees from the ground and smashed boats against the shore. 1 in every 2 people was homeless. The streets littered with iron, trees and other debris. Steel telephone poles lay twisted on the roads. The population of 16,000 was in shock.
The shops, the house, and some goods in the dock completely lost.
Oh, the whole roof was blown off and part of the house was just blown off and things were just flying around.
We'd been having a bad time prior to this happening, and I think it'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back for a lot of people.
A drive through Vila was more like driving through a war-torn city than the island paradise it had been just 24 hours before. Hotels and motels were flattened. The tourists in Vila at the time had to take shelter anywhere they could.
A few of the ladies, I suppose, panicked more, but particularly when the doors and the windows started flying around.
Even though most government buildings were damaged, authorities moved quickly to implement a disaster relief plan and clear up the mess. And then the real toll. 8,000 people with nowhere to live, more with no food to eat. What food there was in shops was checked for contamination and sold. The government opened its warehouses and the army began rationing food. Hundreds of Vanuatuans lined up for hours to be given a meagre ration of rice, sugar, milk and tinned meat or fish. But even with rationing, the food supplies will only last 10 days. But help came from France and Australia. An RAAF Hercules brought tarpaulins, medical supplies and food. The Australian High Commission sought to evacuate some foreigners. Janine Raditz and her children were among them.
I think it's best for me to go home now, before it does get worse. It may not, but you never know.
Megan Barton and her daughter also left the island. They'd huddled in this bath while their home was torn apart.
Well, we've got no home, you see, so we don't know what to do.
Did you intend to come back?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I wouldn't leave my husband. Not when he saved both of our lives.
By nightfall, they were aboard the Hercules on their way home. The homeless islanders, on the other hand, were seeking shelter wherever they could. Public buildings, almost anywhere where there was still a roof. The death toll from Yuma reached 45. 41 of those were aboard 3 island traders which sank at sea. The remaining ships are now urgently needed to take supplies to damaged outer islands.
We have to restore electricity as soon as we can. For communication's sake, we have also have to get our communication systems working.
The damage bill from Yuma probably will exceed $250 million. The Vanuatuans are salvaging every bit of iron, every scrap of timber to rebuild their homes. It's expected to take 5 years just to get the buildings back up. The tourist facilities, a $35 million a year industry, will probably recover earlier. Next to tourism, copra is the main industry here. As you can see, the plantations have been decimated. The National Disaster Relief Committee estimates it'll be 10 years before production gets back to what it was just 1 week ago. For Vanuatu, there are hard times ahead. George Wood reporting for 11 a.m.
Yes, and I suppose the best thing we can do, George, is to go back and spend our tourist dollars there.
Yeah, that's correct. Just give it a month or two, though, while they get things back in order.
Build hotels in that time?
No, but the Intercontinental Hotel, for example, there is escaped unscathed, so there's electricity and everything there, but an Ansett will be flying in from March. So just make the phone call first to make sure there's something there.
In the autumn, Vanuatu.
Yep.
Thanks for doing that. Back after the break to try...
National news.
45 people have now been confirmed dead in the wake of Cyclone UMA, following the discovery of 3 wrecked boats today in the battered Vanuatu island group. Authorities in Vila have described the situation as under control, but there's a desperate shortage of food and shelter for the 8,000 left homeless.
This used to be the Bartons' home. David and Megan and their 10-year-old daughter spent 6 terrifying hours huddled in the bathtub as 180-kilometre-an-hour winds tore away the walls and roof.
We just heard all the louvers going and prayed and laughed and sang and, you know, I suppose what everybody does when they're petrified and we didn't think that we'd live.
Megan and her daughter were among the 12 Australians evacuated from Vanuatu last night. Most appeared to be still in shock when they arrived at Richmond RAF base this morning. They included the husband of Janine Saunders, a 25-year-old Australian woman drowned on the island of Tanna. So far, 45 people have died, 41 of them on coastal traders which sank in huge seas. In Vila, authorities face the awesome task of sheltering and feeding the homeless. The hungry are being rationed rice, sugar, milk and tinned meat. The Disaster Relief Committee estimates there's only enough food for 10 days. Electricity and water supplies are still out. In the outer villages, they get water where they can. The devastation of Yuma has brought the people of Vanuatu closer together. While it'll be years before everything is back to normal, every scrap of iron is being retrieved for rebuilding. In Vanuatu, everyone is building something. George Wood, 7 National News.
And ahead tonight, an American...
was swept away by giant waves at the height of the cyclone. Her husband, Ray, and other Australians are being evacuated from Vanuatu tonight aboard an Air Force Mercy flight. Eyewitness News reporter Ian McMinn, now in the capital, Port Vila, says the death toll is expected to rise as emergency crews reach all the outlying islands.
The first cyclone warning was issued Friday afternoon, but weather conditions, a calm, balmy day and night, belied the impending fury of Cyclone Yuma. Saturday, the wind picked up, but still locals weren't taking it too seriously. Then as night fell, it started gusting up to 180 kilometres an hour. It was a night that people here would never forget.
The wind was just so strong, and the roof just got blown off. And myself and my wife with our 2 sons, one aged 2.5 and 2 months, we spent 7.5 terrifying hours underneath the table. That's all that we had.
Just like a third war.
By Sunday, the extent of the devastation became apparent. The local school was flattened, electricity lines were down, communications were cut, fresh water was a dwindling resource, and the capital, Vila, the centre of economic activity, was in ruins. Amazingly, the death toll was slight, as were the number of injuries, but urgent medical supplies are needed. And to give you an idea about the strength of the winds, this resort behind me, the Iriki Resort, was opened in March 1986. It was supposed to be cyclone-proof, but as you can see, there's the result. Le Lagon, one of the island's major hotels, is no longer operating. Once a pretty picturesque resort, it's unlikely to open until April. A savage blow to the major industry here, tourism, which yields an approximate $35 million a year.
We lost quite a few doors and windows in the safety block that we stayed in. A few of the ladies, I suppose, panicked more, but particularly when the doors and the windows started flying around. I'm certainly no hero when it comes to cyclones or anything like that.
Meanwhile, the French military is continuing to bring in urgent supplies from nearby Noumea, and it's expected an Australian Hercules will arrive in the next few hours. Ian McMinn, Eyewitness News, Vanuatu.
Australian aid is already pouring into the island country. Australian Catholic Relief has already sent $25,000 and World Vision has launched a telephone appeal. Now, donations can be phoned through on double, but as state political reporter Vic Caruso found, freak wave. This report from Sally Begbie. Vanuatu is now paradise lost. Cyclone UMA was ferocious and lethal. Local people are almost silenced in disbelief. They struggle to resume their lives, battling with bulldozers and all the spirit they can muster.
I thought it possibly looked like Hiroshima, looked like after the nuclear bomb went off over there.
The tricolour still flies outside the French embassy, but the main island of Afate is crippled. There is no water, no electricity, and only emergency communications. The injured are being treated at Vila Base Hospital, which is running dangerously low on supplies.
We'll need a considerable number of antibiotics. Dressings are another major problem, and suture material.
At the Rendezvous restaurant, the buffet blew away, but the owner will rebuild. It's a decision that even he doesn't understand.
Something that's your own, so you've got to keep going again.
The first tourist flights are expected to resume in March, but there won't be that much here. This is all that's left of Vanuatu's most famous hotel, Le Lagon. It's destroyed, and so are most of the other resorts across this island. Cyclone UMA hasn't only cut down the landscape, it's killed this republic's most lucrative industry. Tourism brings in $35 million a year in revenue. With the loss of this industry, albeit temporarily, the republic's reliance on international aid.
Cyclone UMA. However, early damage estimates are about $230 million, plus the losses to the copra and tourist industries. Included in the damage was the sinking of this Australian aid project boat, which had been a crucial link in improving healthcare on the islands. However, the most urgent problems facing authorities are to feed and find shelter for the subjects like...
Are confirmed dead in the wake of Cyclone UMA in Vanuatu. The toll rose after the discovery of 3 boats off the Vanuatu coast. All 41 people on board were lost. 4 other people died, including 25 years old Janina Saunders of Melbourne, manager of the Tana Beach Resort. The search for further survivors has been abandoned because of a lack of resources. And as Ian McMinn reports tonight, the country's economy is crippled, with hundreds of millions of dollars in aid urgently needed.
It was the 4th cyclone to hit the South Pacific this season, and as reports dwindle in from the remote districts of the archipelago, possibly the worst. As a poor nation already crippled by falling tourism and an incapacity to produce other than the most basic commodities, most of which have been wiped out, the long-term economic destruction is of far wider significance.
It'll take us almost a year, and a half before things would come back into, to find green trees and, people will look happier than what they are at the moment.
But at the moment, there's only distress.
We're luckier than the North. Some people lost everything.
Resort owner Ray Saunders lost his wife. Janina was 25 when she was swept to sea off the island of Tana, inches from her husband's grasp. Saunders was to take that grim message back to Melbourne with the other Australian evacuees aboard the RAF Hercules flight that provided not only physical relief for Vanuatu in terms of housing, food and medical supplies, but a comforting, if not comfortable, way out.
Oh, I'm just sad that I'm leaving, but I'm coming back.
It's good to be going back home, I must say that.
Aid has arrived, tarpaulins and communication equipment were brought in. The French have sent medical relief workers.
Yes, 4 tablets each day. Okay?
Joel Mansdale is a member of Melly Village. The village, 10 kilometres from Port Vila, was flattened. 1 man died here. Melly is still without water, and electricity isn't expected to be reconnected here until at least July. But this time, the clan is staying put. In 1959, an earlier cyclone wiped out their previous village on nearby Hideaway Island. The Melly clan, which is a politically powerful group in Vanuatu, moved here, believing they were safe. Vanuatu's Foreign Minister, Sally Melissa, has returned home. Foreign aid requirements are still being assessed, but Melissa says he'll accept aid from any source, including the Soviet Union.
Any countries, any support from anybody would be welcome.
This is all that's left of the Prime Minister's office. Cyclone UMA didn't discriminate. She rendered everyone powerless.